Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass. Welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about DuckTales. Yeah! Been a while, huh? Let me tell you, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. For people who might be a bit new, a big and impactful chapter of my channel's lifetime was releasing regular videos talking about the 2017 reboot of DuckTales. And if you are new and you haven't seen any of them, there's a playlist. You can go check them out over there. DuckTales helped me cross the threshold of 1,000 subscribers. It was always something I could rely on that you people watching would be enthusiastic to hear me talk about. And I was just as enthusiastic to provide that. Because DuckTales 2017 was so important here for such a long time, I always wanted to give it a swan song of sorts. Something to celebrate the best of the shining example of how to do a reboot the right way. A swan song intended for my 10th anniversary year for all the reasons listed above, but it's January now, so better late than never, right? I have to joke about it to combat the self-loathing. With this video, we're gonna look back at the series as I count down my top 12 favorite episodes of DuckTales 2017. Quick disclaimer first though, these are just my picks. While some of the show's best and most popular episodes are on this list, at the end of the day, this is insanely subjective, and what might appeal to me in an episode might be different from you. So please let me know what your favorite DuckTales episodes are in the comments. I'd be very curious to know, and maybe even if we have some overlap. With that said and done, let's count down my top 12 favorite episodes of DuckTales 2017. Why top 12? Because with this many great ones, you really expect me to only pick 10? Let's unlock the treasures of the series with number 12, Last Christmas. I always enjoy when I can add a new Christmas episode to my holiday watch list, especially as holiday-themed episodes of shows tend to get more scarce these days. DuckTales managed to have 2 great Christmas episodes, but this one is easily my favorite. While I'm not attached to the original DuckTales cartoon, one of my favorite adaptations of A Christmas Carol is Mickey's Christmas Carol, second only to the Alistair Sim version. My introduction to the story with none other than Scrooge McDuck in his namesake role. So to have the DuckTales reboot dedicate a Christmas special to paying homage to it while putting their own eccentric and clever spins on it made me happy right from the start. The spirits of Christmas are clearly inspired by the ones from Mickey's Christmas Carol, and Scrooge just being pals with them is so fun. It's a kind of premise that is incredibly absurd, but makes perfect sense in the world of DuckTales. Like, you're barely questioning anything here, and it's great. They play around with the time travel incorporated into the Christmas Carol story in really unpredictable ways, too. This isn't a typical retelling, it's more taking the characters and their abilities and telling an entirely new story, something else I'm also quite fond of, including branching off into a B-plot where Dewey travels to the past to finally meet his mom, winding up on an adventure with a younger Donald. Young Donald is so fun, and getting the late great Russie Taylor to reprise her role of the triplets with him was the cherry on top. It all turns into this really nice sentimental story as everyone learns to appreciate the family they have around while they have them. The more the episode goes on, the more layered it becomes, and it genuinely took me by surprise a couple of times the first time I saw it in a way that really impressed me. It embodies a lot of what the DuckTales reboot does best, showing love for the classics its foundation is built on, while telling wild and exciting new stories with these things many hold dear. Taking the tools given to them to create something completely different, something that can be beloved in its own way. From the moment it ended its first broadcast, it's become a must-watch for me every Christmas season. Truly a gift of an episode worth cherishing.
Take heed, rise, and walk with me!
Number 11, Treasure of the Found Lamp. Treasure of the Found Lamp is simultaneously a painfully simple story and juggles so many different elements to make it work as well as it does. I'd call it the quintessential DuckTales episode, as it's all about an eccentric and comedic treasure hunt, with both plots on opposite sides of the hunt. The boys try to find a lost lamp, while Scrooge and his allies try to keep the treasure hunter at bay until they do. Each obstacle takes advantage of the expanded cast of the DuckTales reboot with fitting and hilarious interactions throughout these quests. The simplicity of the main premise helps the episode not feel crowded despite how many cameos there are. It's like getting a greatest hits in terms of the fun that can be had with each new encounter. I also like highlighting this episode because I think it's a great example of how essential it can be to update characters sometimes. Forrest Gin is a wildly different interpretation of his 80s counterpart, Dijon, but reevaluating characters like that to be more sensitive to the new audience you're telling these stories to results in more thoughtful and compelling stories in the long run. I've seen people get upset upset at how much the original DuckTales characters were changed for the reboot, and while on a primal level I understand that, and it wasn't a home run every time, I felt like Treasure the Found Lamp was a good example of the positives of the approach to modernizing the world and characters of DuckTales for a new generation. It combines the classic treasure-seeking antics and comedic circumstances with updated sensitivities and thoughtful reimaginings to make the experience stronger as a whole, as it ties into what DuckTales is all about by the end: family and adventure, and how that's all bundled up in the stories we pass on to inspire the next generation. It's an episode that is a ton of fun, but gets deeper the more you think about it. If you wanted to get someone to give DuckTales a try, this is an episode I'd encourage them to check out.
A treasure's greatest value lies in the stories it can tell us.
Number 10. Beaks in the Shell. Our first episode featuring Duckburg's hometown hero, but certainly not the last. Let me tell you, by this point in season 3, I was starved for a Gizmo Duck featured episode, and this one certainly did not disappoint. Fenton and Huey trying to keep his relationship with Gandra a secret has some of the wildest expressions and hilarious voice acting in the entire series. There are exchanges in the second act that had me laughing with my whole chest back to back to back.
Not working on a secret project.
Secret Hopper Pruba.
Keeping a relationship a secret might be a tired trope, but the reactions from each of the cast members manages to make it immensely entertaining. We may not get to see when they officially became the item, which is a shame, but watching Fenton and Gandra get the chance to properly collaborate authentically is really heartwarming. They both always felt inadequate despite having ambitious natures, and their connection shows how just having someone there to believe in you and nurture your talents can result in amazing progress, personified in the creation of the Gizmo Cloud. Contrasting heavily with the final noteworthy appearance of Mark Beaks, proving once and for all that despite initially making his fortune by giving off a facade of revolutionary progress and technology, he's a hack, only able to patent and profit off of others' ideas rather than come up with his own, repackaging his one success over and over until it becomes stagnant or obsolete. Watching that downfall after all this time as his public persona finally cracks is pretty cathartic, not gonna lie. One day, that will happen to Elon Musk. Beaks in the Shell represents what this side of the show is all about: innovation through collaboration. Those who strive to push the boundaries might work hard to get their name out there, but true innovation comes from striving to improve the lives of others with new ideas. Culminating in one of my favorite final battles of the entire show, with everyone involved getting their own version of a digital Gizmo suit. It's such an exciting idea, it's so creative and triumphant, and it's great. I loved it. I've always had a known soft spot for Team Science, as they were dubbed by the fandom, the brainiac side of the cast, who are capable of so much, but often don't feel good enough. Beaks in the Shell showcases why that is simply not the case. The true strength is working together to create something you never could alone. It's everything that makes this side of DuckTales so special to me.
Who do you think you are?
Call us Gizmo Duck!
Number 9. From the confidential case files of Agent 22. So, case files of Agent 22 came out at a very funny time for me as a viewer. I was working on my first video about the DuckTales reboot, covering mainly what had come out at that point. I was wondering if they were going to do certain things, and they did most of them in this episode, which came out as I was editing that video, so I had to make a bunch of addendums. But I was not complaining because this episode was a blast. I'll admit, when they made that first joke about Beakley being a spy, I wasn't sure if it would be funnier if she was a spy, or for them to just leave it there and have you wonder for the rest of the show. Turns out it's the former. They made the right choice. This is way better. Exploring some of Beakley's past and how she first met Scrooge in front of the backdrop of the stylish 1960s era spy mission really makes for a memorable adventure. I think it's also a good example of bringing in past Disney characters like Ludwig von Drake and the Gummy Bears in a way that feels like expanding this world rather than blatant fan service, even if there is still a bit of that.
The untold powers of the ancient creatures is bouncing.
They'll be bouncing here and there and everywhere. Mass destruction that's beyond compare.
I understood that reference.
Playing parallel to this is dedicating more time to fleshing out Scrooge's relationship, or at the time, lack thereof, with Webby. There's some fun role reversal with Scrooge being the more strict one now, with Webby being the loose cannon, contrasting with his attitude during his mission with Beakley in the past, but it also shows off how skilled Webby is and what Scrooge has been missing out on by not getting closer to her. There's some great moments of bringing these realizations into the light. Webby admires and respects Scrooge so deeply, and yet the feeling has never even attempted to be reciprocated. Until now. And it is wonderful to watch just what a great team these two smart and tough adventurers make. It's a great standalone adventure, takes a chance to explore some untapped potential between some of the characters and their relationships early on, and sets in motion a bunch of stuff that turns out to have much more significance in the series' future. Mainly setting up Shush and Fowl. It's the kind of episode that you appreciate in the moment, but don't realize how important it's going to be later. It's also significant for me personally because this was the very first episode I did a solo review for. A very long tradition on my channel started here, and it always warms my heart remembering that. I'm certainly glad this is one case file that did not remain confidential.
I have a feeling I'm going to be cleaning up a lot of your messes from here on out, Agent McDuck.
Number 8. Let's Get Dangerous. Oh, this was a big one. The DT crew had already proven they could do great reimaginings of the classic DuckTales characters, but as they were getting ready to go into their farewell season, they wanted to have a go at many other Disney Afternoon characters, the most anticipated being Darkwing Duck. DW had already been featured in this reboot before, but this was our first look at St. Canard, his team-ups with Launchpad, his Rogues Gallery, and most importantly, Goslin. As popular and important as the original DuckTales is, I'd argue that Darkwing Duck has the stronger legacy, at least as time has gone on. So this was a very important interpretation to get right, and they rose to the challenge magnificently. Walking that fine line between paying homage to the classic series and keeping what worked, while updating elements to not just fit into the established universe of DT17, but the sensibilities and expectations of modern storytelling. Goslin's story is much more complex than it was originally, and the familial relationship Drake develops with her is more complicated and takes time to form into something really personal and important. Making their bond feel just as sweet and genuine as it always has, but putting in the work to earn that love again, something that a lot of reboots struggle with. It's delightful if you're an OG fan and still amusing if you're not. To me, it's the perfect example of how to remake something beloved, having the instinct to know what to change and what to keep, what you need to change to update the story in a way that makes it worth retelling, and what to keep to get the same response that made the original worth loving all this time, including a lot of the DuckTales reboot strengths like great casting, creative action sequences, and genuine and thoughtful familial connections. This episode also is integral to DuckTales' ongoing storyline, even if the main cast aren't too involved in the events, but it just goes to show just how much this episode is juggling, and it never misses a pass of the ball. Frankly, the only reason it's this low is because it is so clearly, blatantly meant to be a backdoor pilot, but sadly, nothing as of yet has come of it. And it's likely nothing will. Despite great acclaim for Let's Get Dangerous when it aired, high demand afterwards to see the further adventures of this version of Darkwing, Goslin, and Launchpad, and a creative team who desperately wanted to make it. Now it's kind of hard to watch this episode without seeing all the lost potential of what could have been, despite being a great adventure by itself. No one really knows what's going on with the future of Darkwing Duck's time on television right now, but for these 45 minutes, it was proof that the terror that flaps in the night still has plenty of fight left in him with his new family by his side. I couldn't have expected a more epic and invigorating episode.
Come on, you nerds! Let's get dangerous!
Number 7. Woo! Was it lame that I sang it? I don't know. Almost anyone who's been involved with making a TV show will tell you that the hardest thing to write is the very first episode. It's essentially pitching the show to thousands, if not millions of viewers eager to instantly judge your show based on its first 20 minutes. DuckTales had its own hurdles to jump as well, being a reboot of the original Disney TVA success story, something beloved that people thought was fine the way it was. This is also when Disney's live-action remakes were really gaining momentum, and since it was a practice that a lot of fans felt wasn't really working, DuckTales just felt like an extension of that at first. Personally, I think the opening adventure of DT17, Woo, and Escape to/From Atlantis demonstrates really well how this reboot will very much much be its own thing, but not far removed from what made DuckTales so beloved in the first place. Showing off the best aspects of their version of Duckburg and the characters, while highlighting the adventure and family togetherness that keeps DuckTales thriving as a series. It's a wonderful introduction to the characters, a great showcase of the comic-inspired animation and production design, gives the actors a lot of chances to show off why they fit these roles so well, and has a great blend of humor and heart, establishing what the show's focus will be and how the adventure angle will affect and enhance this new family dynamic driving everything else. As well as showing off that this show will explore some unanswered questions, reeling the audience in with a tantalizing mystery.
Mom?
Admittedly, I may have been an easier sell because I didn't care about the original DuckTales, but I knew its impact on animated television and how important its legacy was to so many. Plus, not being a fan going in meant the show just had to impress me on its own merits, which it did pretty instantly. It does an amazing job pitching the series to a viewer by giving every aspect of the show a chance to shine. Eager to see what other adventures will continue on from here. Disney clearly wanted the series to be big since they aired this debut two-parter as a 24-hour marathon, which happened to be the day before my birthday. After about the 5th or so viewing, I had found a show I knew I was going to love, and one of the best gifts I could have gotten that year was proving that this reboot would be worth my time and enthusiasm. It's where I first started enjoying DuckTales, and I've loved it ever since.
You kids are nothing but trouble! Curse me kilts, have I missed trouble.
Number 6. The Last Adventure. From the very first episode to the very last. Now, before I continue, I know The Last Adventure is a bit of a divisive finale. There were choices and twists some fans were not particularly fond of, and that's fine. I don't tend to see people being overly rude in their dislike, and as long as we can maintain the respect of agree to disagree, we're good. For you, this wouldn't be on your list. But for me, this just felt right. There are two things that should be a big focus of a series finale. Wrap up the story you started all those episodes ago in a satisfying way, and take the time to give the characters a final bow. The latter is where Last Adventure shines. By this point, the DuckTales reboot had amassed a humongous cast of main, recurring, and even one-off characters, all memorable in their own way. So for the finale, they managed to create a set of circumstances that gets as many of them involved as possible, playing around with different team-ups and rivalries to create fun dynamics, exciting action sequences, and sentimental moments of bonding and affirmation that the journey each of them has gone on has left an impact and changed them for the better. There's a very good chance that your favorite character got to do at least one cool or fun thing, and with a cast this large, making sure everyone gets an opportunity to participate is commendable on its own. And it offers a lot of the excitement and eccentricity that made DuckTales such a fun adventure show in the first place. As far as the story goes, that's a bit more complicated. If you've seen my unreasonably long review of a 3-part cartoon series finale, you know that there are points where I feel like the plot went in the least interesting direction, or was just a little too ambitious for its own good, to the point that things that should have had higher importance got swallowed up in the scale of the whole adventure. But I think the fact the plot works at all, never mind as well as it does, is again pretty commendable. Building up a force that could stand a chance against such a close and dedicated resistance, led by Bradford, who I stand by could be one of the most despicable villains in Disney TVA history, despite his constant declarations to the contrary, tapping into past conflicts in the show shockingly well and giving them more weight. It's a near world-ending conflict, but it's solved in such a simple way that feels appropriate with the themes of the show. Yes, even the twist with Webby, which I know is controversial, but I really liked it and thought it was sweet. My only complaint about it is that they did it in the finale. I would have loved to have seen an episode dealing with that. Honestly, I wasn't ready to say goodbye to DuckTales when this finale aired. I was enjoying my time with it so much, and I felt like there could be so much more to do. But I realized recently that having a finale where I felt like the adventures were done wouldn't have worked for this show. The most satisfying conclusion to a DuckTales series should be that even after the toughest battle everyone here has faced, there are always more adventures out there, more to see and more to do. The happiest ending could be proving that they will continue to have adventures no matter what gets in their way. Despite its deceptive title, that is exactly what The Last Adventure accomplishes, making me very sad to say goodbye, but grateful I got to tag along on at least a few of the Duck family's greatest adventures.
We're smarter, we're tougher, we're sharper.
And we'll earn our way square.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Number 5. The First Adventure. From the very last adventure of the Duck family to the very first. but not the very first episode. This will be the last clever mirroring thing I try to do. I should have numbered these differently. Anyway, the first adventure is the kind of episode that I feel like you'd really want to see as a fan, but it's a coin toss if you'll actually get it. A piece of the series history that could be really interesting, but doesn't really focus on the central cast. Scrooge has a known history of adventuring with Donald and Della, but we've never gotten to see any of those adventures or even hear much about them. Unless you count the IDW comics. The first adventure fulfills the purpose of giving us a glimpse into how the original Adventure family started, while tying into explaining how Fowl came to be, an organization that had been shrouded in mystery prior to this. But the real appeal of this episode is Scrooge's first adventure with Donald and Della. The young Duck twins are already great characters, but getting to see them in a dedicated episode on a traditional adventure makes them even more fun as we get to see them bounce off each other and get to know their uncle, arguing and working together in this new uncharted territory. It's something I really wish they did more of with their adult selves, but this is a more than fitting compromise. In many ways, it's a parallel to Scrooge's first adventure with the triplets, how having young companions helps Scrooge see his treasure hunting explorations in a new light, to look at it beyond an opportunity for gaining treasure, but as an experience to revel in and enjoy, alongside those who will help you see the excitement in it all. It's just such a delightful and important story from every angle. The setting is treacherous, the performances are really great, there's a decent amount of fan service as per usual, and it sets up a lot of important pieces for the show's final season, while affirming what the adventures of Scrooge McDuck were always about by showing us why they became so special. The value of this season adventure bringing his family along across globe-trotting adventures far and wide. It's a story I never thought we'd hear, but it's so wonderful they took the time to tell it.
They're not my sidekicks, you degenerate egret. They're my family. And this is no mission, it's an adventure.
Number 4. The Duck Knight Returns. The first incorporation of Darkwing Duck into the DuckTales universe, and this one only gets better with age. The idea that Darkwing Duck is a TV superhero in the DuckTales reboot could have remained a fun Easter egg as it had been up to that point, but instead, it's expanded on in the most brilliant way possible, using a reboot of the fictional Darkwing Duck to give the world of DuckTales a real daring crime fighter all their own. Creating a Darkwing Duck movie is such a magnificent framing device that also offers delightful satire and commentary on the many approaches Hollywood takes on rebooting a beloved property, with tons of different voices trying to morph the source material to their preferences and ideas to hilarious and sometimes painfully accurate effect. Even Jim Starling, the original Darkwing, wants nothing about DW to change at all. That extra layer of making that point of view just as toxic as the others really elevates this episode into something so clever and insightful. Especially as a reboot itself, if they didn't do this correctly, this could have been insanely tone deaf.
Ah, cool! A big budget reboot of a thing I loved as a kid! Those are always great!
At the heart of it all are Launchpad and our future Darkwing, Drake. Drake's origins in DuckTales is such a great subversion. The idea that he's just an eccentric theater kid with good stage combat skills makes too much sense, and they keep his identity a secret for a majority of the episode. So it's not obvious that he would take the mantle of the terror that flaps in the night over the character played by DW's original voice actor. Drake and Launchpad love Darkwing Duck in its purest form, as a hero to look up to, who gets back up no matter what he's faced with, and who races in to help even with no real advantage beyond his own stubborn determination and recklessness. The evolution of Drake and Launchpad's friendship in just this episode is so wonderful, and it's one of Launchpad's best showcases in the show, highlighting most of his best features through the lens of his favorite thing, this random TV show from 20 years ago. Yeah, I get that. It's a story about the culture around reboots, the various perspectives of creatives, hero worship, and problematic public figures, treasuring the things that shape us while reclaiming those things in a way where they can grow with us. All tackled in such a simple yet nuanced way that I feel like anyone who has had a piece of media be such an important and formative part of their life can connect with on some level. It ranks considerably higher than Let's Get Dangerous because I think it's an amazing standalone story. I'm not constantly mourning future stories that never came as I watch it. Well, aside from those last 30 seconds.
Happy to play the part.
Oh, the things that could have been. I see a lot of fans fixate on those last few seconds, and I get it, but I think that's a real shame. As amazing as that reveal is, everything preceding it is just as great, if not better. It gets more relevant every year and might continue to depending on what the future of Darkwing Duck is. It's also a bit of a sentimental episode for me because my review of it is where I officially made my mark as a DuckTales personality. It's still my most viewed DuckTales video and is in my top 10 most viewed videos ever. I've been doing this for a long time. It's the one that helped propel me past that long-desired 1,000 subscriber milestone. There may be episodes I enjoyed more, but this is probably the most an episode of DuckTales has ever impressed me. This was dangerous territory to tap into and reinvent, and the crew knew that. But instead of backing away, they said,
Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
Number 3. Astro B.O.Y.D. Team Science strikes again. Like the first adventure, this is an episode that was long overdue, but was absolutely worth the wait. Why? One reason in particular, Dr. Gyro Gearloose. From what I've been told from my classic DuckTales fan friends, Gyro was one of the most radical departures from his original counterpart, going from bright-eyed and friendly to cynical and egotistical, the more modern archetype of a mad scientist. And that might have been an easier pill to swallow if Gyro had some depth beyond that, but despite the fact that he had appeared in several episodes in the first 2 seasons, Gyro was mainly a supporting player and rarely strayed far from these abrasive personality traits. At last, this was Gyro's much-needed focused episode, learning more about his origins, his motivations, and challenging him to step out of his metaphorical shell and open up a bit more. What really makes this episode stand out is how the change in setting informs every character involved. In fact, it highlights all of them excellently. Huey connects with and stands up for a kid he really gets along with, and B.O.Y.D evolves from a one-off joke from a previous episode to the goodest, pure, definitely real boy that ever existed that is capable of leveling a city. There's this great tone with the two of them that all they want to do is be comfortable with who they are, but the adults in the room are doubting them at every turn. A lot of people have said this is a very neurodivergent coded episode, and I can see that for sure.
Look at him. He's a kid like me, just wired a little differently.
Fen gets some great moments, as it probably has some of his best and coolest moments as Gizmo Duck, as well as reminding us of his admiration for Gyro, despite Gyro's berating attitude towards him. We learn more about how Gyro used to be and how they're not so different. Everyone here serves each other's arcs. They play really well alongside each other, and everything is only enhanced when it all comes together. Taking place in the gorgeous setting of Tokyo and playing out with some of the best animation in the entirety of the show. This might genuinely be the best looking episode of DuckTales. The B.O.Y.D and Gizmo Duck fight especially is one of my favorite sequences in the whole series. Astro B.O.Y.D really resonates with most fans of the show, and it's easy to see why. We waited a long time to understand this version of Gyro Gearloose a bit better, and they took that time to tell one of the most emotionally satisfying stories in the entire series. To look a little deeper into others, try to connect, and in the process, you might just see yourself a little better. It may be at number 3, but trust me when I say it is a very close tie with the other two.
You are a definitely real boy.
There was even a Tumblr contest a while back for people to vote on their favorite DuckTales episodes, and Astro B.O.Y.D made it all the way to the final bracket. However, it did not win the poll. The episode that did, though, was number 2. Whatever Happened to Della Duck? This was it. When the DuckTales reboot began, it started laying the groundwork to tell a story around one of the most asked questions concerning Huey, Dewey, and Louie. What happened to their mom? Before the reboot, Della's existence was confined to this single comic book and a couple of name drops. This episode is where the heavy lifting began. This was where we saw for ourselves where Della has been all this time, why she hasn't returned, and more importantly, who Della is. Because that's the biggest factor here, right? Yeah, we know what happened to Della, we've known that for quite some time, but who she was? Much less so. Unlike the others who were reinvented but had a baseline to work with, Della in a way is an original character to the DuckTales reboot. Creating a fully fleshed out character out of this minor inquiry, informing so much about who Della is just from her own actions in this situation she's stranded in. That she is reckless, resourceful, innovating, stubborn, funny, loving, and above all else, determined. They had a hard task with the scenario they wrote Della into. She took a joyride into space right before her kids were supposed to be born and is now paying the price for it tenfold. People tend to be unforgiving of that kind of thing, especially in a female character, and extra especially for a mother. While Della did receive some of that unfavorable criticism at first, a lot of that was washed away with this episode. The entire time she was gone, Della worked day in and day out for a way to get home. From the moment she crashed, all that's been on her mind is making it back home to her family, driven by the love for these triplets that she's never even seen, but will move heaven and earth to get to see them if she has to, tirelessly, every day, for over 10 years. And all of this is presented through Della's own personality and actions. Della doesn't interact with another character until 14 minutes into the episode. Before then, it's just her, a character we've never seen before, enduring the most isolating thing someone can go through, earning more and more of the audience's care and sympathy with every attempt to go back home. Paget Brewster gives a fantastic voice performance as she carries the episode for nearly the entire runtime. There are some fun hints at what Della's relationships are to the rest of the family, and Gyro, which sadly didn't really go anywhere. There's fun and even heartfelt nods to the famous Moon theme from the DuckTales NES game, and it manages to also set up more of this season's story arc on top of everything else. All this time, Della has been a curiosity connected to characters we already knew, but a character we didn't get to know ourselves. This episode sets out to correct that, molding Della into the spirited adventurer motivated by the family she left behind that fits into the Duck family perfectly. Whatever happened to Della Duck is beloved and acclaimed for a reason. It's incredibly impressive. Like I said, it has topped best episode fan polls and even made some reputable lists for one of the best episodes of television of 2019. If I were ranking the best DuckTales episodes, this would no question be number one.
Unafraid of the unknown, because I'll face it all with you.
Since it's not, we've got one more to go, but before we get into that, let's go over some honorable mentions. Beware the buddy system. Back when I made my first ever DuckTales video, I said this was my favorite episode, and while it didn't make this top 12, it is still a great watch. Any great showcase of Launchpad is always appreciated. There are some fun and funny chase sequences, and of course, the debut of my boy, Fenton as Gizmo Duck. What else could I ask for? As the show went on, other episodes just did what it did better, so that's what knocked it down, but it still has a special place in my heart. The Last Crash of the Sun Chaser. DuckTales' first big heartbreak episode. There's some devastation in other episodes of DuckTales, but nothing hit quite as hard as this one. Stranding the gang in a precarious situation where tensions get so high that long-kept secrets are uncovered, and it seems to divide them even more. There is no fun to be had here aside from that one Darkwing Duck joke, but it's heartbreaking in all the right ways. Every cartoon in the 2010s had at least one episode like this, but this might just be one of the best. The Outlaw Scrooge McDuck. This one's just a hoot. I really had fun with it. The Old West setting is excellently realized. It results in a lot of fun sequences. It gives us steampunk Gizmo Duck, which is on screen for a criminally short amount of time, and even has some themes of how different characters view the pursuit of acquiring wealth. It's great. It's fun. I liked it. A lot. Louie's 11. A great premise that utilizes tons of the characters really well, but what really puts us here is the introduction of Daisy. Her inclusion is a bit divisive as Daisy was not in the original DuckTales, but I really admire her ambition, and her budding relationship with Donald is probably the most genuine version I've ever seen of the two of them. I maintain that the Hear My Voice sequence is one of the most romantic things I've ever seen in any media. Moonvasion. It was so hard to choose between this and The Last Adventure. I gave it to Last Adventure because it's a great series finale and that's a bit more impressive, but Moonvasion definitely deserves praise as well. I think season 2 had the best ongoing story arc, and Moonvasion is an excellent cap-off to that arc. When the build-up matches the payoff in terms of quality and entertainment value, that's something to be celebrated. Like the other DuckTales finales, it demonstrates how big the Duck family has gotten, how much closer they are, and what forces they can overcome together. Also, they managed to sneak in Mickey Mouse. Sort of.
Oh boy, I love a reunion.
Whoa!
But now it's time for my greatest treasure. My number 1 favorite episode of the DuckTales reboot is... Who is Gizmo Duck? Yeah, this might be the most biased number 1 I've ever had on any of my favorites lists. Longtime viewers, or viewers who have picked up on the not-so-subtle hints in this video, know all too well that Fenton Crackshell Cabrera is my favorite DuckTales character, and it is not even remotely a contest. I love a bunch of the other characters, but all of them pale in comparison to this scattered-brained superhero. He's my Blorbo, he's my Cinnamon Roll, he has one of the best redesigns of the entire cast, Lin-Manuel Miranda's voice work for him is so good. He embodies both my struggles of believing there could be great things to achieve, but not having the means or qualifications to chase those aspirations, and my fantasy of carving out a profession in which such untapped skills can excel in a way that is wholly satisfying, but never truly realized or thought possible deep down. He's not only my favorite DuckTales character, but one of my favorite characters of all time. And all of that originated with this episode. While Fenton donned the Gizmo Duck armor before, that was in a quick crisis. This was when he started to entertain the idea that maybe the capabilities he showed in that situation that have had no other use before then could make him into Duckburg's hometown hero. This episode focuses entirely on Fenton chasing after something he really wants to do and searching for the approval of others to chase these newfound aspirations, establishing nearly all of Fenton's significant relationships with the rest of the cast, from introducing his awesome mother to his first fan and eventual friend in Huey, to pretty much solidifying Mark Beaks as his villain rather than Scrooge's tech bro rival. The ones who help him prevail in the end are the ones who build him up by seeing what he's capable of, sometimes even before he does, rather than knock him down to make sure he fits a mold they cast. Fenton is trying to prove his worth to those he deems superior, but it makes him miserable and gets in the way of what he really wants. The turning point comes when he carves that path for himself, with the only compromise being to maintain virtuous values. On the surface, it's a standard journey of self-discovery wrapped in a superhero origin story, but woven with this rapid-fire journey of self-discovery from someone who dreams so big but has yet to achieve something meaningful, thinking that the only way to be seen as remarkable is to fit into a preset role. It's this great identity crisis of a story. You cheer for Fenton at his high points and feel for him in his low points. It doesn't absolve Fenton of any of his mistakes, but gives him the opportunity to thrive on his own terms in a way that is just so damn triumphant. A theme that will remain consistent with every new struggle Fenton has from this point on. It even goes so far as to imply some of Fenton being dismissed by his higher-ups, specifically Mark, is because of his ethnicity. I have seen people more qualified than me weigh in on this theme, and considering that one of the first and most important changes that co-creator Frank Anganes made to the main cast for the reboot was to make Fenton Latino, it's definitely not there. Before this episode, I was psyched for Fenton's role in the show for superficial reasons. I thought he'd be a fun, eccentric character that would get really rad fan art. And while he was most certainly that, I came out of Who is Gizmo Duck finding something of a kindred spirit. I relate to his difficulties to find where he fits, understand how often he rambles and just can't seem to turn certain parts of himself off, and aspire to one day have the same courage he showed to forge his own path in spite of all doubt he could. It officially solidified Fenton as my fave. It's the episode I've watched the most, and while it is most certainly not the best episode, all those reasons and more make Who is Gizmo Duck my favorite episode of DuckTales 2017.
I'm not a mascot, or an intern, or a fancy tool. I am Gizmo Duck!
There we are, that's the list. You know, this was way harder to narrow down than I thought it would be. Ever since it ended, sometimes I forget how much I like the DuckTales reboot until I get the itch to rewatch some of it. I definitely forgot how much I like to talk about it. This was flexing some neglected muscles, and it felt really good to revisit the series. Hopefully it was satisfying to anyone who has been waiting patiently for another DuckTales related video in their subscription box. Assuming you're getting those notifications, ring that bell. Oh god, I don't think I've ever said that before. Who knows if I'll ever have an excuse to talk about it again. But if there's anything Scrooge McDuck and his very extended family have taught me, is that there's always mysteries to solve, history to write, and adventures to be had if you go out there and look. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely know what you thought of this list and what some of your favorite DuckTales episodes are in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.